So welcome everyone for the day 2 of our webinar today, which is, I know, a little bit of an extension from yesterday because of the hiccup we had. So without any delay, we'll just make a beginning and continue from where we left off, and then catch up with day 2's proceedings. Thank you. Over to you, Gaurishankar.
All right. Thank you very much. So yesterday we have gave a little introduction why we need these workshops to be conducted. And we looked at the rationale why we are doing the 6 sessions. And the first session we discussed yesterday is the discovery of land. The main aim of this study is to understand the relationship between the mankind and India and to discover who are Bharatiyas. We have checked the historic, the evolutionary perspective, how the humans have evolved from other primate family. We have looked at different kind of anthropological changes came in the human history, and we have discovered from the studies which published in 87 and 88 that the ancient human lineages were found in Africa. The male lineage is AB and the female lineage is L1, L2, L0, L1, L2, and L3. So from this, we have seen that the new studies, the Eurocentric scholars have proposed that taking the old evidences, claiming that West Asia is the home for the non-African ancestors, and they have proposed certain theories, like they gave the human migration routes in this fashion, based on mitochondrial DNA migration and then Y chromosomal DNA migration. Then the new studies came in 2003 by Civilisation and others, which claimed and proved that M and N, which are the branches of M and N lineage, is originated in India, and it is supported by the 10-year-long study by IBM, which is published in 2011, which gives the final route map of human migration. And this is also based on the out of Africa theory. That means humans, assuming humans has evolved in Africa and took a eastern route throughout the Arabian Peninsula. Before 50,000 years, this whole area was connected by land. The Suez Canal and this Red Sea and other Mediterranean Sea and this Arabian Peninsula didn't come up. So the humans have migrated, walked, and came to the India. And it was believed that non-African humans have populated in India and migrated to the different parts of the world from here. So which is supported by the theories I have mentioned yesterday. And another interesting study by the Riche also proves the same thing, same pattern. Then we have, when we move to the material evidences, what the material evidences say, what story it tells. So we have looked at the stone tools that we have discovered from different parts of the world, and we have looked at the Stone Age tools from China, from India, from Europe, and the certain dates came up, like 3000 BC and earlier. Now the interesting part here comes when we take material evidences from India. In center of India, in Madhya Pradesh, there is a group of rock shelters called Bhimbeteka. It's a small village town, protected area. It has been found that there is a jawbone is found 20-30 years back, and it is dated to approximately 2 lakh years. And this is the evidence of a Homo sapien in India. And they named that jawbone as a Narmada man, because Narmada river passes nearby. Similarly, the Bhimbeteka also shows the different habitation. The same cave system has habitated different species of humans. For example, we did find the evidences of Homo erectus in that area, from ranging from 1 lakh years to 30,000 years. They lived inhabited those caves. And similarly, we find habitation of Homo sapiens, the modern humans. And along with the cave systems, all right, along with the material evidences, we also find a beautiful cave paintings, which are unique in its own way, and they are one of the oldest in Asia. So here we can clearly see on the rooftop of a cave, we have a horse procession. There's some kind of a festival is happening. A lion or a tiger is looking around, and the chicken is running around, and the person with a bow and arrows with a shield is walking around, and there's a flower which shows there is enough water in that area, and there's other paintings also. So in addition to that, there's a horse paintings we see in a continuous pattern, elephants, person riding on an elephant. So these kind of pictures comes up in the Bhimbeteka. And this, as I said, dates back to approximately 30,000 years ago. And it has been continuously habitated from long back, approximately 2 lakh years. Another interesting evidence, material evidence, comes from Germany. In Germany, 32,000-year-old, this zoomorphic figure made up of a mammoth tusk is found, which has a lion face and a human body. And this is one of the oldest zoomorphic images found in Europe. Similarly, this is 32,000 years old. And similarly, Aboriginal art from Australia has been found dated back to approximately 25,000 years back. So there is plenty of evidences that human cultures have thrived in different parts of the world, showing their uniqueness and leaving the material evidences. So this is another example of a cave painting from France, the Chauvet Caves, which is a UNESCO heritage site. And here you can see the portrayal of lions in France, which was common till the 16th century, and the horses, different perspective of bisons, deers, rhinos in Asia, in Europe can be seen here. Even the archax, the old bulls, can be seen here. So which leads us to a conclusion, and a general misconception exists at present times, that the advances in technology gives one's impression today that we are much more wiser and vastly different from those who lived thousands of years before us. But the archaeological records exactly tells a different story. So this is not a primitive art. Even the modern painters do maximum justice with the similar kind of painting. So in skills, in the perception, in the delivery, our ancestors weren't much different from us. Only what we have done today is the rise of technology, electronic and electrical technology. Now, another evidences of the migration of humans comes from the agriculture. The Western historians always, in the Eurocentric way, try to portray that the whole world has originated from the Middle East, that is Israel area. So the similar notions shows up in this story of agriculture too. The Western historians say the 15,000 years old site in Israel is the first place where the agriculture has started. And they claim that the first crops that humans have learned to do agriculture is barley, wheat, and rice. and which contradicts with what we have what we have found scientifically now, that evidences, the archaeological evidences shows that rice was a part of Indian diet by 8000 BC already. So the notion that the migration from West Asia to India occurred is false. That means if consider rice was originated agriculture in Russia, in Israel, with the migration of humans from Israel to India, they have to bring the technology of doing agriculture of rice. But by 8000 BC, it is already part of our human diet, our diet. And it is found that the river plains, the river basins were so rich in India in remote past that we need not to do rice agriculture. The rice fields were plenty and they were growing wild in the whole of river basins. And another evidence which refutes this claim is that around 12,000 BC, which is the end of the Ice Age, actually rose the need for agriculture. Before that, it was plenty and available. The current, from last 10 years, new data has poured in, and it showed that the barley cultivation developed for the first time in India independently of any external influences. And the reference to this claim come from the Sang 2009 paper. And the similar DNA studies of rice shows that the rice agriculture evolved at 2 different places in the world independently. One being the Gangetic Valley, Ganga Valley in India, and second is South China. So this is based on rice DNA studies. They have found the agriculture of rice happening in Ganga Valley and Ganga Plains and South China. So till the beginning of 19th century, the Western academia and Western historians are obsessed with these 3 civilizations. One is Egyptian civilization because of the looting of treasures and finding the bounty there from the pyramids. Second is the Mesopotamian civilization because of affinity and the references they found about biblical evidences and other stories in Mesopotamia. And the third is the Chinese civilization. And these 3 civilizations, for example, the Mesopotamia has evolved around 2 rivers in Iraq, present-day Iraq, between 2 rivers called Euphrates and Tigris. And it was fertile land. And due to the importance to the Western history, Mesopotamia always become a center of discussion. If you look at the features, why the Western historians are interested in this is because the civilization study extensively examined the biblical facts and legends. And the Babylon once had 2 million people in it at the peak of its civilization. And if you look at the society, we can clearly see the class system existed. That means the kings and nobility were one group, priest and priestess, upper class, lower class, and slaves. So the slaves are the part of Mesopotamia culture. And what we find is that the Mesopotamia, the there's a city called Ur, which is famous for its giant buildings, shows they had magnificent architecture and town planning. So the surrounding the cities and the other kingdoms around the Mesopotamia are Sumers, Babylonia, Assyrians, and these all are military races or military civilizations. They're always fighting, showing their muscular power, and they also confronted with the Egyptians and Romans at that time. And one of the most feature that we come across of Mesopotamia when you think of Mesopotamia is its hanging garden. So all these three civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egyptian civilization, and ancient Greece, the core principle of these civilizations, what we found is the material culture. Other than buildings and certain material evidences, for example, big palaces, big temples, and great pyramids, we can conclude that those civilizations based on material culture as a core principle. But the story changed in 1920 when a new civilization or new habitants were found in the place of Harappa, or next to the Indus River, Sindhu River. So when the studies came up, it is found that this is the largest of 4 earlier known civilizations. For example, the Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and China. At one time, in the peak of its of civilization, it is estimated that the Sindhu River system has huge urbanized cities. It has population sustained more than 5 million population grew in those cities. And despite of technological advancements, which has been found contemporary to the other civilizations, there is no evidence of monumental buildings or structures discovered, which is quite contrasting to other 3 civilizations found. So we can, for now, we can say that the Sindhu Saraswati civilization or Indus Valley civilization is mainly non-material culture because we cannot find enough material evidences from this civilization. In spite of that, we found the magnificent, town planning structures in Mohanjadaro. And this is clearly seen that this is the upper city. The city has a unique commercial complex, residential complex, working complex. So it is well organized. There is a upper hill and lower hill. So these the architectural evidences are being found, and it is also found this mysterious the bath, and the purpose of it is still being debated why it's been built, and it has various unique features compared to the other civilizations. For example, it has been often found that in Sindhu civilization there is a high respect for women. And it is been evident from the girl worship. Second is we found the urbanized cities, which is divided into commercial and residential complexes, which is again unique concept of that time. Then we also find these are not aloof race or aloof civilization. They have extensive trade relationship with the other civilizations. One of the striking feature is in Sindhu civilization, we haven't found any palaces for kings or for nobility. So how we found a unique place for kings in either in Egypt, either in Mesopotamia or in China, we do not find any grand residential palaces for kings. So the historians said that this civilization seems to be of no king culture, and the evidences show that they all share some kind of equal status as equal citizens. And the knowledge plays special role than power. This is subjective, but still it's been scholars have put forth that. Now it is also found this civilization has shown more reverence to nature than other civilizations. For example, in Mesopotamia, we clearly see the stone relics, beautifully stone relics of lion hunting. And the lions used to be, they used to be butchered, and it is considered as a trait of a ferocious king. So no such evidences are found in Indus Valley civilization. So it has been believed that they give very high regards to nature. And in evidence to comparative to other civilizations, it's been found that there is a well-developed script. We haven't deciphered it yet, but moreover, 10,000 different alphabets or 10,000 different symbols are being found. And the excellent town planning, drainage system, flush toilets is unseen in the world, what we have witnessed here. And though the civilization is the biggest of all civilizations known with approximately 5 million population, it doesn't seem like they had any structured army or huge weapons for conflict. So this seems like the civilization seems like it is prosperous, thriving, but there is no disputes, or even if there are disputes, they are non-fatal, which is again contrast to other three civilizations discovered earlier. And it is interesting to find that the earliest signboards in the world is used in Sindhu civilization. So when the archaeologists went to Harappa, Mohanjadaro, and even in India, Kalibagan and other archaeological sites, they have found the nameplates, huge nameplates, undeciphered, but they know it is much larger and used for the display. So from that, they conclude that these are the first signboards we have found in the world. And in addition to that, we have the claim that the Indus Valley people gave high reverence to nature comes from the postures, which is we can readily relate to as a yogic postures. So, and from our Puranas and our Shastras, we call Shiva as a Pashupati. He's a lord of all beings. And the Harappan, these tablets, K tablets, also show that. And we can also see the elephant, tiger, water buffalo, rhino around it, which is also forms our emblem. Current Indian emblem has lion in it, horse in it, elephant in it, cow in it, and some other animal I just forgot. So it's a direct linkage we can find with the Harappan civilization. So this is what they found. Now the question came that who are these people? Who are these people who inhabited this Sindhu River, and where did they come from? So to answer this question, the theories of India has developed. The one most prevalent and still accepted to most cases and still in vogue is the British created history, which is based on Aryan invasion theory or Aryan Dravidian theory. From last 30 years, numerous scholars has put forth a new theory which says that, which based on genetic, archaeological and other evidences, which says that out of India theory is another theory of India. And with the technological advancements in biotechnology and other fields, there is another evidence, or based on scientific evidences, there is another theory called one DNA theory. So we will look into it, then we will see how they work out. So the Eurocentric scholars of Europe of 19th century, they thought how any place in the world can be more advanced than Mesopotamia. So when they found out, when the imperialism is in vogue across the world, they found out the Sanskrit word mata or pita, and the Latin words mater and piter is familiar to them. So to prove the antiquity of the European heritage, that they are the most elite and supremacist attitude, based on these few linguistic commonalities, they said, okay, the Africa was the home of humans long back. Then they came and settled near Middle East, which is Israel area. And from there, this is near Israel area. From there, they went to Europe around 10,000 BC. And from there, people went to North Asia or Eastern Asia around 8,000 BC. And from there, around 2000 BC, there is a race called Aryans from the Middle East. They came to India, to this Sindhu civilization, Sindhu Saraswati Valley or Indus Valley. And they kicked out the then inhabited race called Dravidians to the south of India. So this is the British fabricated theory, which we unfortunately still find in today's textbooks and been taught to even to current generation. So in this presentation, I would find and refute this notion. So clearly from last 30 years, this theory has fallen on its face from the evidences from paleohydrologists, that means the people who study the ancient rivers, from the archaeologists finding material evidences, and from the scientists who do the genetic studies. The genetic studies prove that there is no influx of people after 10,000 BC into Indian subcontinent. This is for sure the scientific evidence, and no one can refute it. Second evidence is the finding of cities submerged under Arabian Sea and in Bay of Bengal, and the discovery of Saraswati River. Till even today, the Marxist and leftist leaned scholars portrayed Saraswati, which is described in Rig Veda and various Vedas, as just a figure, as an iconographic figure. And even though Rig Veda talks about Saraswati as a river with a stretch of 20 kilometers, and it flows like a goddess, they completely ignored it and made it as a deity of a natives. But the new evidences show that there was a river called Saraswati River, which shows the authenticity and proves it again from our literary sources. Our own Vedic text, all the text, there is no mentioning of invasion anywhere. Without the memory of oral tradition, there is no mentioning of any invasion. Therefore, this theory can be easily refuted if you stand true to our literary sources. And it is also found that the British historians claimed that when this Middle Eastern race, so-called Aryans, came to India, they bought a lot of horses and chariots along with them. Till then, the inhabitants had no such technology of domesticating horses or creating a chariot with wheels, because they want to prove that the wheel invention happened in Mesopotamia and do not want to share credit to any other civilization. So that's the basic reason. So with this, even though they claimed it, materially, we haven't found any horses or chariots, increase in number of chariots around the period what they have said, 1900 BC. So with this prima facie, we can which refutes clearly this theory is nullified, but still it finds place in our history textbooks today. About the river Saraswati, we know that the current river Sindhu is flowing through the Pakistan area. And the present area of this Thar Desert and the Kutch region was once flowed by the Saraswati River. And this historical memory comes from our various slokas in Rig Veda, which describes Saraswati. And when in 2003, when ISRO and Archaeological Society of India did combined studies, they have found this ancient cities around this Haryana region, Punjab and Haryana region. So these are these regions, and you can clearly see that there is a pattern to it. It's like a wave-like pattern flowing. So, which shows, and the further studies have proved that this pattern doesn't just stop here, it flows along and parallel to the Sindhu River. And it goes to all the way to the Run of Kutch, which is dry now. It flows like that. So from the literally evidences of from the Rig Veda and the modern scientific radio satellite images, we clearly found that there is a existence of a Sindhu River, which also proved from your simple Google Maps. If you just look at the Google Maps, you can see the continental shelf, which is the upper crust of Earth of India, goes much further than the current sea levels, which falls somewhere here. Okay, and we can still see that the ingressions of the ancient rivers which flowed through it and cut the land into the huge canyons, which is clearly even found in the simple Google Maps. This is from the Brahmaputra and the Ganga River, once used to flow in the full force and created this valley on the eastern side. And this is from the western side of India. So this is about the scientific scientific archaeological evidences. Now I will delve into the little bit about the literary evidences from the literature, what we found in the ancient Bharatiya literature. Or Vedic text says that the whole region used to be called as Sapta Sindhu in our text, in the Vedic text. The tribes or the people who inhabited Sapta Sindhu after certain time, they have separated, created different tribes of these names: Puru, Anus, Yadus, Turvasas, and Druyas. These are the Vedic names. And these tribes have migrated. Some migrated to north, some migrated to west, some migrated to south, and some to east. This is what we got from our literature. And in this picture, you can clearly see the Saraswati River is flowing parallel to the Sindhu River here and meeting the Arabian Sea near Kutch. And these are the common names you will be familiar if you read any of Puranas or Mahabharata. Mahabharata, which is quite recent compared to our lineage or antiquity, it talks about all these places of Sapta Sindhu and the various rivers and the Kuru area, which is Kurukshetra, where the Mahabharata happened, Panchala. All these names are quite familiar to people who have read all these itihasas. And it says the term Aryavart is not a racial term, it's a regional term where they lived. So this is the regional term they used. Aryavart is not a racial term. But the British historians and the Marxist historians purposefully did a mischief, turning a geographical identity into a racial identity. So this is what we have to observe. And this Aryavart has formed after Saraswati River has died out. Why did it died out? I'll just explain to you in some time. So after Saraswati died out, that means the patterns have changed in Himalayas. It stopped trickling and stopped flowing in that basin. Then the people and the families which are dependent on the river slowly migrated to the Ganga Valley, Ganga Yamuna Valley, and they started living along the Ganga River. So that is also recorded in our literature. The Rig Veda also says, for example, Angirasas, he says, and the Vashishta also says that our ancestors have always made sacrifices, that means Havan or Yagnas here in Saptasindhu. So the Rig Veda remembers that their ancestors have always lived in Saptasindhu. Rig Veda also says, let our sages prevail all regions. That means they have spread across the huge area, and they have spread to the different part of the worlds too. So yeah, then our other literature also says, as I just said earlier, this Anus, this tribe, and Druyas, so these fellows, these tribes also migrated further, and they formed, they made home in Iran, Afghanistan, Iran area, and further into the northern part of the Aral Sea. So this is also comes from our literature. So in addition to that, the genetic studies clearly say that there is no inflow of any people into the 10,000 after 10,000 BC. And the 2012 study of ancestry of Afghanistan, Afghani people, also pointed to the same theory, that is, that Indians have migrated, the Bharatiyas, the North Indian and South Indian population, divided. This is in 1,000 years, that means 7.9 means 7,900 years ago. And you have to add up when it branched out. So the scale is approximately 10,000 years scale when we looked back. So 9,000 years ago, people have moved to the Pashtun and Afghanistan area. From the Afghani tribe, 1,000 years later, another group have branched out to Iran and Russia, which exactly fits with this literally evidence what we found in our Shastras, and which also coincides with the last glacier melt, which is a technical term used that 12,000 years ago there was a small ice age. That means the whole of northern part of the earth was frozen. So from 12,000 years, it slowly started receding. The ice started receding, and it gave to the newer land to explore. So this also sits exactly with the geographical changes which are happening during that time. The study also further goes that when they checked the genetic population of with reference to the geography, they found that the people of this whole region, you can see from Pakistan to Iran, Afghanistan, and to northern parts, the Turkmenistan and Istans, those people share the similar genetic ancestry. And also further, next to the Caspian Sea, this whole region found to be similar in genetic identity. So the Western historians always made a theory that India was home of no one lived here. At the same time, they put forth the emphasis that India was a land of many people, not one people. One people can claim this as a home of their own. So in their attempt to prove that, they said some 70,000 years ago, some people from Africa came, from Middle East came and stayed there. Then second batch came from the Central Asia and lived here approximately 35,000 years ago. Then another batch came around 12,000 years ago. Then finally, then Aryans came approximately 2000 BC, that is 4,000 years from now. They also came from Central Asia, which then large number they came and displaced the native Dravidians. And in succession, the Islamic invaders came, they gave the civilization to India, and the European colonists came and they gave the civilization to India. So this is to prove that everything in India came from outside, and there is nothing of any importance exists in the native civilization or native people. But the truth is quite contrary to this, the present scientific evidences. Evidences say that the India was always a home to the human population of non-African descent, and from here the whole Europe, Asia, and East Asia was populated. And people from here, from the ancestral North Indians and South Indians, they have migrated out of India. So population actually went outside, as this graph shows. It goes up and dips again and increases in population, dips again and dips again and slowly increasing. So it proves that India was always a home to human race and to India, and they are native of this land, and that lineage still continues today and runs through in our blood. So this is just till now I've just talked about the literary evidences, archaeological evidences, paleohydrology evidences stating that India was home and people from here migrated to different parts of the world and populated the world. Coincidentally, this is also proved in other ways, in other migrations. For example, cows, migration of cows. Our Indian culture and Indian civilization always gave reverence to go or cow, from which the English word go come from. Go means going, which comes from go, which is a cow, which is always on move. Cow always is a domesticated long back in India, and they always lived with humans. So wherever the humans, the Indians went, they took the cows with them. So the first paper of interest came in 1994 by this Loftus. This fellow said that the Indian cows had been domesticated independently of Western influence, because West always likes to take credit of everything. But this fellow refuted that and said, independently of Western Asia influences, cows were domesticated in India. Then the other studies came out. For example, this Chang in 2009 he published, which proved that DNA evidences or DNA studies that all the jebus means humped cows, the natural desi cows, Desivali cows we see with a hump on the back, or the Nandi, those are called jebus. So these jebus all over the world have migrated from India, and jebus had been domesticated only in North India. This is the study published in 2009. And another study from 2009 of mitochondrial DNA of these cows said that the Ukraine and Central Asia migration happened from India. And if you look the migration path from 30,000 years back, this is the distribution of cows we see. The black areas are the jebus, that means Indian cows. Indian cows has migrated from India to Arabian Peninsula to Africa. Even today in Africa, Indian cows has jebus. You can see even in Kenya, the Masai Mara tribe, they have jebu cows. So, and they only go when humans go. So there was a direct link somehow, the cows migrated. And there are also evidence shows that even the genetic studies in buffaloes shows that the buffaloes were domesticated first in Odisha, Bihar region, which is based on the paper from 2007. After this domestication, the whole of Southeast Asia, where the water buffaloes are common in the foresty areas, they have started domesticating the water buffaloes. In evidence to that, in addition to that, even the mice migration has exactly same pattern what we find in the migration of human population. So if you see the 2000, when is this paper published? 1993. In 1993, the paper published on migration of mice, and they found that the ancient lineage of rats or mice found in Indian Peninsula, and they have took these routes to move to the Europe, to move to the Western Europe, to move to the Northern Africa, and to the northern part of Asia, and to East Asia and Southeast Asia. So if you see, this is exactly what we see in the IBM study of human migration. If you see, you can clearly see this migration pattern matches with this. This migration pattern of humans matches with domesticated mice who always live around the food supplies of humans, migrated along with them and reached to the different lands. Similarly, the Eastern distribution also follows the same path as we found in human genetic studies. And also the black rat population, which clearly shows that one population from the center of India moved west and another population moved east. So this is clear distinction we found. So what does it prove? All these studies, it proves that there is no Aryan race or Dravidian race. The Bharatiyas are one, and the mischiefs of using the words such as Adivasis, Girijan, Harijan, or caste population, Jatis, all religious minorities are different people of different ethnicity. India is a boiling pot of different ethnicities. That's a common term we see even today in the national narrative, which is completely false. And this proves, the scientific evidence proves that they all are from same parent stock. There is no evidence of any invasion or Aryans coming from outside to India. So all these theories which talks about the different ethnicity of Indians should be nullified right away. There is a speculative studies which is not decisive, or the studies have been went on, because if we want to know our history, we have to spend our time, money, and energy to find out the research. The Indian government or Indian academia never put effort in that direction, so we do not know much about it. But even the prima facie shows some promising insights. For example, in Easter Island, which is in far east of in Pacific Ocean, they found certain script, and that script is much familiar to the Indus script. So this is the Easter Island script which has been found, and this is the Indus Valley undeciphered Indus Valley script, and you can see they are quite similar. Even these notions, they're quite similar. The two people with some object in the hand, and even the symbols are quite similar to the Eastern Island and Indus Valley. So there is some connection. We haven't found that yet. And the Chinese have an interesting way of keeping their records. So they used to write on the back of a tortoise shell, and they call them as oracle bones. You can find them in museums if you go. And these are the symbols of ancient Chinese characters. So if we compare that to the Indus script, we also found the similarities of the ancient Chinese script and Indus script. So the symbol structure of Chinese script perhaps influenced by the Indus writing system. So that's a speculation. Further study has to go through that. So, okay, we have proved till now that India is home of humanity, non-African humans. There is an antiquity which goes back to 2 lakh years at least. And people have always lived in Sapta Sindhu, which is from our oral tradition, we remember. So what they have contributed to us, if you ask. So their knowledge orally transmitted till today through Vedic literature and Puranas. Puranas are stories that we remember. One of the interesting story in Purana is Bhagiratha and Ganga story. So the story goes that the Bhagiratha prays for the river Ganga to come to earth and for the fertility of the land. So the Ganga comes and Shiva holds in his hair, and it started slowly across the Gangetic plain. And this has correlation, direct correlation with the last glacier period. That means I mentioned earlier, 12 to 15,000 years ago, there was a small ice age. So the whole of northern part of the world was frozen. And around 15 to 12,000 years ago, all that ice started melting. And when the ice melts, it creates devastating torrents. And they flow in full flow. So the Himalayas were frozen and it started flowing. And that used to flood the whole region. And that signifies the coming of Ganga into the Ganga plains. So we can date back this Bhagiratha and Ganga story to somewhere around 10,000 BC. So we can directly find the time link of the geographical happening and the stories we find in our Puranas. So this is what I just explained. 40,000 years ago, the Thar Desert was wet climate. Around 7,000 and 10,000 years ago, because of the tectonic activity, the sea levels have risen and the water has become, the rivers started breaking off glacial rivers, and it created 2 great rivers such as Saraswati, Satadru, Dristavati, and other great rivers used to flow in India. So this shows the same pattern. Now, another mischief did by the British historians and Marxist historians is that to fix the date of Rig Veda to around 1900 BC. That means when Aryans came, they bought their culture and they bought the Rig Veda. That means even Sanskrit does not belong to India. It's a Western import. That's what the claim is. So they fixed the Rig Veda is around 1900 BC. That means if it is in 1900 BC, they should know about the previous civilizations, for example, Harappan cities, which is 3000 BC, 4000 BC old. If these people, if the British historians were right, when Aryans came, they should see the existing cities, they should see the existing Harappa civilization and their cities, but Rig Veda does not talk about any urbanization. So from that prima facie, we can say that historians are lying. But the Rig Veda also talks about Grama and Pura, but in a different way, which mischievously the British historians and Marxist historians have distorted. So in one hand, we have the whole of Vedic literature without any material evidences or archaeological support. We have thousands of literature with no material evidence. On other hand, we have Harappa civilization, which is found in 1920, with undeciphered script and material evidences. And the British influenced Indian scholars, for example, the Kumaraswamy and all, I will show you. And the Western Indologists and the Europeans to claim that everything in India came from outside and there was nothing in India. They said that these two are two different people. So these people have houses and no language, no culture, nothing. And these people have culture system without any housing. And the Kumaraswamy and Renu, these are the two British influenced Indians who postulated that Vedic people lived in huts, not material brick way of living. They lived in huts like this. But our sutras, our Dharma Shastras says that it is impossible for one to obtain salvation, that means mukti, who lives in towns covered with dust. So our Dharma Sutra talks about towns covered with dust. And these British influenced Indologists trying to prove that Vedic people dwelled in these huts. And the sutra which comes from is from the Dayu city, which is an Iranian city, which is not Vedic people. So that contradicts. So the Harappan architecture, if you see the Vastu Shastra, it is completely Vedic in essence. And it has been found that Harappan cities have altars, that means havans. They have dwelling houses as per the Vedic geometry. That means according to the Vastu Shastra. The another evidence which shows that Rig Veda is at least 8,000 BC, older than 8,000 BC, because Harappan features are absent in Rig Veda. That means Harappan cities has evolved after Rig Veda came. For example, existence of bricks. Ishtaka, generally in Sanskrit, we call bricks as Ishtaka, bricks. Bricks are not being mentioned in Rig Veda. Rig Veda doesn't talk about any urbanization. It doesn't talk about the fixed altars. Rig Veda does not talk about any abandoned cities or towns. Rig Veda does not talk about cotton. It does not talk about silver. It does not talk about rice, agriculture of rice. Rice means agriculture of rice. Wild variety of rice has been described, but not the agricultured, genetically improved version of rice. It does not talk about wheat. Rig Veda does not talk about any script. It talks about the oral tradition of our forefathers and been teaching, and been taught, but not of any script. It does not talk about any iconography and jars. So from these evidences, we can clearly say that the timeline. Yes, I will finish it earlier. Yeah. So that timeline says that the Western history about India and the story of India, what we find in Indian textbooks, is all of any scientific evidences, and it's a cooked up story. So the Bhimbeteka have the evidences of 40,000 years old cave paintings and material evidences. Our Puranas talks about events such as glacial melting of 10,000 years old. The Sindhu Saraswati Valley talks about the before 8,000 year events before 8,000 years, and the material evidences continue from this time. So theme of the Vedas is to transfer the various knowledges, for example, mathematics, music metrics, ragas, units and measurements, ethics, astronomy, herbal knowledge, economics, cosmology, and all other branches. And it is a holistic way of transmitting system happen in oral tradition. So that's how we see. And this is the wealth of the Vedic literature, what we have. Most of you probably familiar with it. We have Vedas, sections of Vedas, Upavedas, Vedangas, Darshanas, Puranas, Itihasas, and the commentaries by our rishis, which is a huge topic in itself. And we know the Shruti and Smriti part of it, and various classification of the literature. So we have immense literature, and though a lot have been lost, it's been still in continuity. So I'll just skip that. It's just showing that Ramayana and Mahabharata has described, for example, 4,000 plants are being mentioned in Ramayana. Out of that, 900 were identified at present times. Similarly, the Mahabharata talks about various things. I would like to draw one more point, then I will finish. That I would like to compare the Western philosophy and Indian philosophy. Why Indian philosophies differ from Western philosophy. This is a Roman tile found around 200 AD, CE, Common Era. So this clearly says Triphy and Bios. That's what it says. Bios is represented by a male and Triphy is represented by a female. Triphy means soft and leisure. Bios means life. So what it's trying to represent is, yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can please raise your hands. I will very happy to cover the points. I'll just cover till now. Yeah. So the Western philosophy goes like this. The life should be accompanied by the pleasurable living. Life and easy living should be inseparable. And the reason, that means rationalism, and hedonism, which is pleasure, as the end of human life. So these two represents the end of human life. What is the purpose of life? Purpose of life is to gain pleasure and live. Where Indian philosophy does not talk about these things. It always emphasizes nature of good and lays down practical means of attaining perfection here and right now. For example, Bhagavad Gita. It talks about, it doesn't go to the philosophical talk like Kant's philosophy, which is the Western philosophy. It doesn't talk about good or bad, merits and demerits. Gita talks about right away what is good, how practically we can make our lives better now, not in next life or other life, now. So that's the difference. And with this point, I will end. That the Indian philosophy always saw humans with the capsule within the nature. And Rig Veda and other Vedas always emphasized that humans are in true self when they live in nature. That's why rishis always lived in the outskirts of the cities, never in a crowded cities. So, but when the settled man, when the cities and towns have developed, there is a confusion started. That means the Vedas are being misinterpreted, and the Vedas has to be written and kept to the posterity. And the Western philosophy has always saw man as a separate and superior to the nature, and man has some moral authority and has a moral obligation towards the nature. and no obligation towards the nature. So that's a little bit comparison about Indian ethics and Western ethics. I will take a question from Vasudha Garu. Yeah, you can ask your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Gaurishankar Garu.
Yep.
Wonderful knowledge. This is regarding this earthquake, which every religion talks about.
Okay.
Okay. So what do these researchers, do they talk about it? Is there any proof that yes, even after this Dwapara Yuga, I think it is, we find, think Arabian Sea and all, it is submerged cities there.
Yes.
Dwaraka.
Yes.
So what is your take? Like, can you give little more knowledge about it?
Yeah, I mean, it is the earthquake. I mean, the western part of India is a seismic zone that is commonly known. There is frequent earthquakes. The last, the Gujarat earthquake of 2002, 2003 or so is quite evident. The strong earthquakes do come. But around when Krishna lived, around 3,000 years, 5,000 years back in 3000 BC, as I just said, the glacier melt was happening. There is a tectonic shifts which submerged the world is coming out of the small ice age. So the glaciers in the polar regions and also in the Himalayas are melting, which raised the ocean levels. And that led to the submerging of the Dwaraka and eastern parts, and that happened. Very interestingly, during Vajpayee government, 2002-2003, a lot of scientists, from Indian scientists, Archaeological Society of India, they have asked for a funds to,
I know.
Yeah, in the Bay of Kambat, which is the part of Gujarat, that they have found that there are cities underneath. They need funds to do the marine archaeology. But subsequently it's been denied and there is no money put there. In future, if we put money there, we will find wonderful evidences which proves our antiquity and connects our literary evidences with the physical evidences. Another point I would like to add is the West always points fingers at India, saying that, see, you talk about literature, but you don't have material evidences. India is always been habited, and we have now 1.34 billion people, and we all need agricultural land to feed ourselves and land to live. So the ancestral lands or the material evidences which remain in remote areas is not accessible to us. So that's how we cannot find direct evidences. Yep, there's another question.
Nothing. Thank you so much. Yeah.
It's me, Gaurishankar.
Yeah.
Two questions actually. One,
sure.
If we go back to the slide where you mentioned about the humans of Indian subcontinent have come from the same stock.
Yeah.
And how do we explain the phenotypical differences between nowadays that we can still see?
Yeah.
The skin complexion, the hair texture, and facial features. How do we explain that if they have all come from the same stock?
Yeah.
That's number one. The second question would be not a question, but perhaps an observation. When we say Western philosophy, are we actually referring to the advent of Abrahamic kind of view of the world? Or is it that you are referring to Western philosophy as the Greco-Roman and the so-called pagans? Because my understanding has been that their worldview was of human within nature, at least to the pagan part of it, or the world civilizations before the advent of Abrahamic faiths. So your comments on both of them.
Yeah, sure. The first part about the phenotypes, that means in India, if you see, the Kashmiri people and the Tamil people look different. Gujarati people, Bengali people look different. Okay, Rajasthani people, Andhra people look different. And tribal population, for example, if you go to Arku nearby, or Chhattisgarh, forest of Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand, the people, the forest population, the Vanavasis, look completely different than rest of us. This is another mischief did by these Marxist and the British fellows, that because they believe in racial theory, and also they believe in hierarchy in the society, they put the same lens when they talked about India. As I just mentioned, the Bhimbeteka talks about, has evidence of a Homo sapien 2 lakh years ago. Okay, and the consistent evidences we can find in bits and pieces from 1 lakh years. Okay, so 1 lakh years is a long time where humans adapt to the local environment and local food habits and local geography. So these differences in how we look has to do with the adaptation humans made to that particular latitude of the India they live in. As we know, the Kashmir area is more closer to the North Pole than the Tamil people, who are more closer to the equatorial region. So this variation shows that. And when you talk about why Vanavasis and Girivasis are different from so-called urban population, the reason why is we never intermarry between them. They are very remote. For example, till 18th century, the whole of Nagpur belt, that means Dandakaranya technically, the Bihar, Jharkhand, the Amarkantak Valley, Chota Nagpur, and the Chhattisgarh area, north of Andhra Pradesh, Adilabad, and this area, Odisha, Sambalpur area, this whole area was called as Dandakaranya. It was so thick to go that a family of 5 or 6 or people of 10 would not cross in that direction. Even Adi Shankara has walked along the sea coast, never through the interiors of India, because it is so hard to go through that. So they were isolated. People were isolated, and they are adapted to the climatic conditions of forest and hills. And the people of rest of the India, where the migration is easy to walk, I mean, where people can easily walk, they intermixed, they intermarried, and the features have developed over the time. That's the answer to your first question. And the second one is about the philosophy you asked, about which philosophy. When I refer to Western philosophy, what philosophy I'm referring to. I would like to bring to the notion that when we talk about Western philosophy, the current historians or philosophers separate Greco-Roman civilizations to Abrahamic civilizations. And from the Abrahamic point of view, they call Greco-Roman civilizations as pagans, because they believed in polytheism and other factors. But if you look at the history of organization and living and forming a system, Greek and also Roman kingdoms has their own religion organized religion. And the idea of and the Roman, and you all probably aware that there were churches. The idea of church is Romans, not Christians. The idea of congregating and doing service is a Roman idea, not a Christian idea. Christians have hijacked Roman ideas and try to, and they use the common existing norms and they claim them as their own. And Romans, for some reason, could not fight back and could not show their uniqueness. So slowly, the Roman people slowly converted to Christianity, and the whole civilization just wiped off. So if you want to understand the word pagan in European context, you have to look at the Germany and Russia. The pagan religions of Russia and Germany are more antique than the thought of Greco-Roman. I would not call Greco-Roman as pagan. They're polytheists, but they're organized, same like Abrahamic. And even the thoughts of Abrahamic philosophies, we will find them roots in Greco-Roman traditions. Is that, did I cover your answer? Or?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. And if we have any more questions, please do raise your hands. It's already 8:20.
Yep.
If not, we'll meet up again tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Kindly, if the sessions are exciting and informative, please do let others know so they can also join in. And I think it's important that we have a critical ability to look at history from a systematic approach point of view, a scientific approach as much as we can say, but also not forgetting that the scientific inquiry should include oral traditions. I think one of the problems we have had was that the systematic approach only looked at recorded or the evidence from those material evidence, but oral evidence has not been taken into consideration at all. And it's for us to actually devise the historical methodologies to include the oral traditions as well, and the Puranic way of storytelling rather than a Western way of storytelling. They don't need to, it doesn't have to be always the Western way of storytelling. Puranic way of storytelling also needs to be appreciated. So a lot of work, actually. I'm very surprised that Indian historians really don't show the ability to try to break away from the Western norms and do justice to our unique way of understanding history.
True.
I think Sharath has a question, and we'll complete after that. Please keep it short, Sharath.
Yeah, sure. So we have two arguments, as far as my knowledge is concerned. One says that Vedic civilization is aged 7000 BC, and one more thing is that it is only just 3000 BC. So which one is the right thing? And the second thing is that there are a few claims that Aryans have been invaded from Iraq and Iran, not originally from India. Is this really true? So these are the two questions which I am having.
That's what I tried to refute, that there were the population of humans, non-African ancestry of humans, populated in India, and they have migrated to every other part of the world. Okay, so this is, I'll just go back to the slide. It will be easier for you. So, yes. So this is the study which shows that people in India, the non-African ancestry, that means non-black looking people, That means except Africa, everywhere in the world, they are populated in India. All right. And from India, they have migrated outside. This is what the IBM study, the $2 or $3 billion they have spent on this, or $15 billion, costliest study for 10 years, rigorous study by various labs from Indonesia to Europe to Americas and South America. They have did this study, and this is what they found. So there is no Aryans. Aryan is a geographical term, not a racial term. That is the first distinction you have to make. So no one came from outside. Everyone from India populated the rest of the world. That's the first.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first.
Yeah, I got it. And my second question is, Vedic civilization, is it aged? See, according to our Puranas, it is a few crores and crores of years.
Yeah.
I know that. But as far as scientific and this science is concerned,
yeah,
few people say that it is 7000 BC and few people say that it is 3000 BC.
Yeah.
So which one is the right one? So according to Indus Valley civilization, so it is I think before 5000 BC.
Yeah. So here the next slide just shows that the hand axe from India has been found approximately 17 lakhs years ago. Okay, 17 lakh years ago, 1.76 million years ago. Okay, so it shows that humans lived in India. Okay, they could be our direct ancestors if you go back, and perhaps we may remember some of their morals that they have taught to us. We just don't remember. So the capping of the date to 3000 years to 7000 BC, this is all rubbish. That's what I try to prove, that we have antiquity from various sources, even from a rock caves like Bhimbeteka. All right, we have plenty of evidences which we try to ignore and believe Western historians whom trying to emphasize that everything from West is true, everything what we teach is true, and you have no culture, you have no antiquity of own, and you do not worth anything. That's what the point is, and we are giving into that due to our education system.
Okay, thank you. And but it is a high time to counter the point that few people say that originally Agnas and Agas are originated from Persia.
How?
Persia is nearby to Persia is nearby to Afghanistan.
Iran.
Iran. Yeah, Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq. So few people are claiming that it is from Persia, but actually we have to make them understand that it is not from Persia. It is originated in India itself.
No, and, the evidence, the linguistic evidences also prove that the Persians, before Persians, Zoroastrians used to speak a language called Avesta.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly,
it is much similar to Sanskrit, where Sa becomes Ha, and some variations. So which clearly says that the people from the India, which I just mentioned here, they moved out of India and moved to Iran. Okay, but Western historians proved that they came from opposite direction. Okay, so these are contrary, and we should stick to our narrative, which is given in our Shastras, in our Puranas, rather than listening to your enemy and thinking they are telling the truth.
Okay, thanks a lot, Gaurishankar. I think there are a couple of points that came to my mind, with which we'll finish. One is the arguments will continue.
Yeah.
And those who would want to kind of propose that Indians have migrated from outside will continue to come up with their own narratives.
Yeah.
But what has been missing so far was that we have not been representing our side of argument so far.
Yeah.
And it's important that we also start really kind of putting forward strong arguments based on facts and logic, as well as I said, methodologies unique to the Indian way of historical documentation, whether it's oral or written.
Yeah.
So we need to, I think it's a good effort from Hindu Mitra that we have taken up this effort, and Gaurishankar is really masterly presenting the evidence. So it's good to see people participating actively in asking questions. Please do so, continue to do so. And one more thing, perhaps an advice to the historians of future in India is that they have to have grounding in Indian languages.
Yeah, true.
So far, I think historians have been getting away not having any understanding of Indian languages, and any Indian language translation and historians were relegated to their own local fields, local territories, but that's not the way it should be seen. So we need to definitely make a case that knowledge has to be made meaningful only through languages such as Sanskrit, Pali, and classical Indian languages, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, so on and so forth. I mean, a good knowledge in this is very important. Perfect. Okay, it's already 8:30 exactly. 15 minutes past the actual time to stop. We'll stop here and we'll meet up again at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you all once again. We are recording the sessions and we will make them available. Please do watch and again, and also please do let everybody know so that they can join. Thank you once again. Namaste.
Namaste.